The match between MIBR and W7M ended in a win for W7M, 8-7. However, today's face-off couldn't be more different. After all, on that occasion, Bodega had to play in Felipox's place, and to make matters worse, they even let Bodega use his favourite operator.
Eles baniram Termite, sempre passei a semana todinha fidando de Termite, aí eu joguei de ban, não consegui matar, foi um dos únicos jogos que eu consegui matar. Se eu conseguir matar, então os caras conseguem matar, então tá tranquilo, vamos ganhar.
No jogo contra o MIBR, no segundo split, foi um jogo difícil. Eles estavam com complete por conta do Pox, né? Ele não pôde jogar. Eu quero muito enfrentar a MIBR com a line completa deles. Eu acho que tem de tudo para ser um jogão, ainda mais agora com a adição do novo player.
And this desire to face MIBR with full force Felipox comes from whom the previous match's MVP, GDN, who stood out on that day, but now is with W7M, a team that needs to find the best lineup possible to match the Sleeping Giants.
O projeto é um joguinho difícil, porque eles vão ficar mais agressivos agora, com o Case entrando lá no lugar do Mave, mas vai ser tudo nos moldes que a gente conhece, né? A gente vai conseguir jogar, impor nosso jogo, e a gente vai punir as jogadas deles.
Creio eu que vai ser um jogo difícil. No último confronto foi um 8-7 ali. Eu tô ansioso para jogar contra eles, ainda mais sabendo que eles fizeram um bootcamp acho que na Sérvia. Vamos ver o que eles têm aí de novo para inovar no jogo.
Bodega and his players have already proven that the presence of Felipox puts the team on another level. On the other hand, W7M do not have the room to lose and will do everything they can to get a victory over their opponents. But is that a realistic target? Only one way to find out with this match between MIBR and W7M.
Well, it's definitely set to be an interesting one. W7M versus MIBR. Ollie, what are you thinking about this one? I think it's going to be a close one. Obviously, MIBR on top form, but last time the teams came up against each other, it was a close match.
Yeah, obviously last time they came up against each other, I imagine Bodega would have probably been playing for MIBR, and obviously that had that came with its own sort of fun. I can't see this being a close game, I'll be honest with you. I really think that MIBR are going to come in and they're going to try and stamp down some authority inside of this one.
Yeah, it's a rough one. Look, W7M, it is one of those things. They are the last place team. But I think it's fair to say, Gio, they have surprised a lot of people coming into stage 3 with the fact that they've had a couple good games. It's a question of how far can they push that, and is it kind of the fact that, well, we're in 16th place, what have we got to lose?
Yeah, I mean, obviously yesterday left a bit of a bad taste in our mouths because we wanted to see them put up more of a fight against Team Liquid, especially on a map like Oregon. They simply didn't. They got 2 rounds. It happens, right? You know, they've won what? They beat Santos, but that again was max overtime, so that was an 8-7. You look all the way back to Playday number 1, another max OT with Team 1. They lost that one, so that was a 7-8, and that was on Villa. So yeah, that was a good game, but we also know that Team 1 usually take a couple Playdays to actually warm up every time a new stage rolls around. So I don't know. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where it's like they're in last place. They don't really have anything left to lose. They just lost a couple players or one player from last stage. So they're still in this rebuilding even this late in the year. I think for them, it's just a progression thing.
Yeah, we'll see. Oh, let's take a look over at the map vetoes and see where we're going to be ending up. Now, the thing is, do you think MIBR maybe go for a map that W7 are a bit more confident on as almost a way to practice it, coming in confident to this matchup?
Potentially. I think MIBR are going to be fairly focused on just getting points on the board here and getting that done in any means possible. That's not to say that I think it's going to be a particularly difficult job, but I think MIBR have probably got the ability to go to a couple more different maps than maybe somebody like W7M has. Getting rid of Bank straight away. MIBR played Bank yesterday. Coastline Villa Clubhouse all removed. Cafe gone, so we are left with an Oregon or a Chalet, and it is going to be a Chalet. MIBR getting that decision there honestly makes quite a bit of sense. MIBR are a good team on Chalet. If we look at their recent performance on that map, it's kind of soiled by the fact that they've not played as a full 5 on Chalet for quite some time. But if we think back to, you know, these guys and what they're actually capable of, you cannot doubt their ability on this map. And I think that that's really going to start to carry them through.
I feel like one of the things with MIBR, Gio, is the fact that they have such a wide range of maps that they play on the regular. It's hard for a team to get a read on them at times. So sure, MIBR, they might not have the best record on Chalet, obviously because of having to play as with a substitute, but it also makes it tricky here for W7M, who, while they have a strong Chalet, well, they haven't got a great depth of knowledge to really review and look into. I guess we'll see how the game unfolds, though, because it's getting underway. We're going off to Chalet for match number 2 of the evening. Ollie, Gio, take it away.
Thank you very much, Chunks. Let's get ready to stuck
Rumble.
into this game. Rumble, maybe? I think that's somebody else.
Come on, you gotta, we can steal it, it's okay, there's no copyright here.
I think Warren Buffett would have something to say. I'll be honest with you. MIBR versus W7M. Chalet is going to be the map. Lion Band to kick things off here.
Dude, I am getting Operation Chimera just... It's being thrown in our faces at the moment. We're getting Thinker, we're getting Lion. What is this all about, dude?
It's a bit of a throwback, isn't it?
Dude, Chimera was the season that I bought the game in. So, shout out.
I mean, I almost feel sorry for you.
Well, actually, I think my first game was logged in Parabellum.
Okay.
So, I did slightly miss it, but I bought the game during Chimera.
I was a velvet shell, baby.
I feel sorry for me too. Well, I played the beta, but that was on PS4, so it doesn't count.
No.
Anyway, either way, we're seeing so much of a Chimera throwback. The Lion, I quite like a Lion ban, or a ban of, I suppose, any of those sorts of operators, the Lion, the Dockerby, or the Jackal. If any of those operators that can track you on a map like Chalet, pretty valuable just because it's so big. This can be a very aggressive map, and a lot of teams have liked to use those sorts of operators. Especially, you see it a lot in these teams that are a bit more towards the bottom of the scoreboard, and they see that as their kind of, I don't want to say easy, but easier way to figure out where these defenders are. You take that away from them, suddenly their lives are significantly harder. Now, we're having a couple of interesting 6 picks here because going off of the Jaeger onto the Vigil, that suggests that they want to lean into a deeper roam. Big fan of Vigil. Obviously, again, very hard to track if you're not doing it particularly astutely. And then we've got the Capitão on the other side. The other interesting thing here is, Ollie, that we are going down into the basement, which for a lot of teams is a particularly unpopular site to defend.
Already the whole game, I just want to reset it. We just need to start this one again. Everyone just needs to have a really good, long, hard think about what they're doing. GDN has just switched from a Hibana to a Capitão.
Yeah, the Capitão was the one that I had some question marks because, again, I think they are expecting to be going to a bar attack because Capitão you can use to pretty effectively flush out the backstore, which is usually where there is an anchor or just some really pesky defender sitting. And the backstore is a small area. You can use those bolts to actually push someone out of that. This site, however, is going to be a lot harder to get a ton of effective use out of a Capitão. I'm thinking maybe in like the blue stairs area in elbow, potentially.
But even then, like, what are they going to be? They've not got a hard breach. Like they've got Capitão's little tin opener.
I'm trying to understand their thought process. I'm trying to ignore the really weird part of it, Ollie. I'm trying to be positive.
I appreciate, and I'm sure that they appreciate that as well.
See, look, this hatch is open.
Great, we can get down onto the second floor.
It's not a useful hatch, but
like it's just a
it's
like,
a lack
what
are you
going
to do? You're going to go down into trench and you're going to look at the reinforced wall?
It's a lack of like, I just like teams to bring options. I think that's the most important thing.
Oh god, they've realised it was a terrible idea as well.
They've gone, you know what? We've got an audio bug. We need to reset this game. Well, I'll be honest. I don't know what we've just witnessed. We've just witnessed 2 minutes of weird siege.
Well, they have to commit to it. Even when they come back, they've got to stick to that Capitão, and they've got to know what they're getting themselves into.
Exactly. They're going like, right, guys, what can we do? We've got a couple of minutes here. We need to come up with something insane.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's just so strange because, you know, any map in our dear beloved map pool that I can think of that you would maybe not want to bring a hard breacher on is Coastline. but this isn't Coastline.
Even then, here's my argument with Hard Breach, right? Hard Breaches now are so good and they bring so many useful things that it makes so much sense just to bring one because you just get options. It's almost beyond whether it's necessary or not. It just gives options, and that's something that you see what teams are capable of doing when they give themselves as many options as possible. They might not even use some of the things that they do inside of the round, but they've got that option for later on if required. And you just get the impression that W7M have put themselves in quite a difficult box straight away. To be honest, if it's a one-off, it's fine. If it continues throughout the course of the game, it's a real problem.
Capitão, I will say, is a rather niche operator.
Yeah.
Right? So you really have to know that you are bringing him along for something very specific. And I think this is why I assume that this is a misjudge of the site that they are expecting to go to, because I can't think of a particularly niche use of Capitão. Now, I think they picked him with the secondary hard breach. So
Yeah,
at least they could open a line of sight.
Yeah, but they're still going to be pushing through a single door.
Oh, I totally agree. Ollie, I'm trying to look for the positives here. Because yeah, Capitão, he's a niche operator, and I feel like for Capitão, you want to be switching out one of your flex players for Capitão. You don't necessarily want to be switching out your hard support for Capitão. So I'm on the same boat as you are with that one. That said, W7M could have this really elaborate, ingenious plan to use this Capitão and completely pummel MIBR into the ground, and we would be sitting here looking like idiots. So there's always that.
There always is. We're waiting for one more player to get themselves back into the lobby. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but they do play for W7M. And as soon as that happens, we'll perform a couple of final checks and we'll get back on into the game. Again, apologies for the delay. We thank you for bearing with us, but it's very much out of our hands, and it is something that does typically happen quite a bit. Sometimes the power can be a little bit unstable, sometimes the internet can be a little bit unstable, and these things do happen, but you haven't missed any action just yet. We're still inside of round number 1, and we will remake from that point. The bans will remain the same, as will the site choice and the operators selected. Hopefully we'll get underway fairly soon.
Just been some florid postulation from us. No real action.
Is that what that translates to in like normal words?
That just means that we've been going off on a tangent about hypothesizing about what could happen.
Well, something that
like
is worth
florid language, you know, it means like really fancy and colorful language.
I respect it.
Yeah. Anyway, tell me what you're going to say, Ollie. I'm sure it was more interesting.
Well, I may save it for another downtime if we do get one. I may try and slip it in mid-round, but it was something on Felipox, and I think everybody should just keep a keen eye on him. Obviously, he was the player that had to start to use a controller because of a shoulder injury, and he is now back in full force. And up until this game, we haven't seen this game, so I'm not commenting on it, but right up until this moment, he's the highest rated player currently on the side of MIBR. And it just shows that he's really looking to, I don't want to use the word make amends, but he's really looking to make an impact here, given the circumstance that his team has been in the previous stage. And it's really nice to see him just come in and absolutely thrive once again. So we are back now in the game, and we do have the same site and the same operators selected, which, I mean, if you're on the side of W7M, you're going to be sick when you're clicking on that Capitão knowing that you're going to have to stay.
I was watching GDN do the 6-pick, probably hating himself. The funny thing is, as well, as Reduck didn't even bother to 6-pick. He just didn't go with the Jaeger at all. He was like, well, they know I've got a Vigil, so I'm just going to pick on the Vigil.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do it as a 6-pick. Meanwhile, GDN's like hating his life.
Yeah, he's like chancing the fact that the Hibana might not be allowed to 6-pick off it. He's like, oh, sorry, I couldn't 6-pick.
Oh no, my mouse stopped clicking. Oops. No, he's had to go back on that. I mean, like, let's look at what they do have. They've got a lot of flashes, so they can do some flashing. That's an option.
True.
They've got some flank watch. I think actually having the Nomad not that you would really play on this map without a Nomad anyway, but having the Nomad's going to be useful given that it looks like MIBR are leaning into this roam. And one thing that I will say is, even if you brought Hibana, you may not have been able to get any value out of her anyway, because they've got a Kaid on the defensive side. So, I don't know, maybe you just get one extra operator in that sense.
Well, it's
Because
true.
you wouldn't have been able to use your Excaris pellets anyway.
It's true, and especially with the roam that MIBR are going for here, you're going to have to clear it out. And you make a joke about the flashes, but with the rework to flashes, it's actually kind of viable to flash and actually peek somebody through a single door. You know, I know that it's a single angle that someone's going to have to check, and it can be quite predictable to come through, and it's one of the criticisms that we have about teams that try and execute through a doorway or a window. But if someone's full white flash, they can't do anything about that. So if you're able to deploy them in the right way, it can make the need for a hard breach a little bit less in some circumstances. But still, you're going to have to get yourself into position to be able to do so. Herds, land your shots. Somebody land the shots. Redux and Herds just dancing with one another. Redux comes off worse and he retreats back down into the site.
Yeah, he can just get away. So, you know, he's fine. I mean, he's low on HP. They don't have any healing stations to work with. We did get to see some Thunderbird yesterday, which was nice. But yeah, he's done his job, because consider this. It's over halfway through the round. A roam doesn't always need to achieve a kill. Sometimes all it needs to do is just waste the time of the attackers, because they have to go on that roam clear. And they knew that there would be a roam because they knew that there was a vigil. They were droning upstairs, coming in through the upstairs. You can see that they're all still upstairs. We still got some dude up on the roof. I think that was who even was that on the roof? Some guy chilling up on the roof. And we got under a minute remaining. They got to get to the basement.
Still a long way to go. And I think at this point, MIBR will probably be pretty confident that there isn't a hard breach available. Obviously, we've mentioned that GDN has his secondary hard breach gadget. But realistically, is anybody going to be able to get into a position to be able to use that? Look at the positions that MIBR are now occupying, aggressively holding on to stairs that lead down into the site. They know that they're going to be fairly safe from everywhere other than those staircases. There's laser gates locked onto the doorways as well, which is going to waste a little bit more time. You start to hear smoke canisters go off from the attackers, maybe trying to cover their entry as they look to move on through. Lukid, he's going to find a kill over onto Herds. They
5
do
seconds,
now start
dude.
to flood in, but there's just not a great deal of time left. Lukid line them up and knock them down. 2 kills on the round. Filipok swings in with 1 as well. And that was like lambs to the slaughter there. MIBR picking up all the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? You're W7M. You know you all have to jump down through that hatch. So if you're MIBR, you just wait at the bottom of the hatch. That's about it. There's really not that much more to say about it, because we knew from the get-go that the chances for W7M were so disgustingly slim because of the operator choices that they brought. And I really hope, GDN, please, you haven't locked into Hibana yet. Oh, what are you doing? It wasn't a mistake.
Right, now we can really start to go in on this.
Do they think they're going to bar this time? Are they going to do... What? Okay, all right. Remember what your therapist told you. Okay, cool.
There is an option here that there is an option that they think they're going somewhere else. However, at some point you have got to recognize and realize you need a hard breacher. Like, Hibana is banned out so much for a reason. Ace was banned out at a time so much for a reason. Like, these are very important things. Thatcher is banned in this game by W7M, I might add. Yet they still don't recognize the importance of bringing somebody that can open up a hard reinforced wall.
Okay, I was going to say one thing that I will say is that W7M, if they play their cards right, they might have a better time of some vertical play here just because of the buck. And you can get some value, which could open space that they need to get into the site down below. And if they use the secondary heart breach on the dining room wall and they have someone holding an angle from there, they could set up some pretty good crossfires, but it still feels like a compromise on what you could have. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, can we have an attacking strategy? We've got one at home. attacking strategy at home.
Attacking strategy at home is this. And like the flashing lights and the meal deal with the toy is the hard breacher. It's like, no, you don't need that. In reality, you probably do. Hertz is going to start opening up some angles here. If you're wondering why he's getting himself onto the roof of the car, it's because you can actually shoot through and open 2 floors up. Gives you a very nice angle all the way through, and you can start to affect onto players inside of lounge. They're looking to defend onto those solarium stairs. Never too much of a problem when you defend in a basement. Usually it comes into contention a little bit more if you're going to defend onto that top floor. We can see GDN's got his drone into position now, and there's nobody going to be occupying these solar stairs. Instead, MIBR going for that trademark playstyle of theirs where they do just like to hit quite a significant roam. A lot of value being found from Twitch here. Panico taking out an Echo and the default. The default less to write home about, but a Yokai drone gone is always a good thing for the attackers.
Lucid taking a bit of damage as he's here on the bathroom window, deciding to go for the peek anyway, but doesn't find anything. Is he going to continue to get aggressive here? He can't quite see it. It'll actually be Felipox, the first one to fall. Lucan's just not going to give up, dude.
I mean, he doesn't really need to. Like, he can just kind of challenge onto this window as long as he likes. W7M aren't looking to push it as a unit, and instead Hertz is just going to go and hop on through. Gives himself away pretty much for free. Now the initial advantage that we saw W7M have has been neutralized. That is until 2 more kills fly on in. MIBR still not looking to back down from the fight and still defending this top floor with pretty much everything that they have got. Lukid, is he going to be able to clutch this one out? Picks up one onto Gee. Now the plant is going down here. Hatch being open could give him an opportunity to get a line of sight onto that, but the plant will go down regardless. Lukid still occupying this top floor, just trying to make use of the vertical angle. You saw him! No! I'm wondering if it's a little bit of a bait and switch. I'm wondering if he's trying to... Yep, there we go. He comes back to collect the kill. One of his teammates maybe just backing him up there and saying, yep, you definitely did see him. Can he find the last as well? He does. It's 4 kills on the round for Lukid. What an incredible clutch. Loads of time to disable that diffuser.
So, against the odds, W7M still managed to get into the site and get a plant. And even so, we have Lukid, who gets this ridiculous 4K and comes back and disables the diffuser. This is a very weird game so far, I'll be totally honest. I actually agreed with you when you said, like, Lukid doesn't need to worry too much about getting aggressive on that window, because ultimately, it was important that they had that defense upstairs to prevent the vertical control from being taken. However, whatever was going on downstairs was a mess. That was the problem on MIBR's, and it just so happened that Lukid was playing really well. Now, if any side is going to allow this stupid capital idea to work, this is going to be it. Just because there are those small spaces like Backstore, which is where Lukid is right now, as I was saying before, that's probably the one place that you could get some really good value with those firebolts. However, I think this is really going to depend on how strongly MIBR are defending the upstairs, because if W7M can't take control of library, for example, they're never going to get the opportunity to even use those firebolts in the first place. So I'm interested to see where it is that MIBR are going to be positioning themselves. Once again, they've lent decently into these roaming operators, so you would assume that there will probably be at least one person in library, maybe someone a little bit further afield towards piano. They only have 1 shield, so I assume they're not going to have tons of real, like, anchor positions upstairs, which is what was popular just a couple stages ago when Chalet first entered into the map pool. It seems that people have developed this more fluid way of playing this map now, but it still could be a hassle for W7M to break through.
Let's see how W7M choose to approach this. If I don't see GDN make a beeline for that back store and deploy every single piece of his Capital utility in there, then there's going to be even more questions to answer. We're not even going to get to
my
see it,
God,
Gio. We get to see Ford.
We waited 3 rounds to get to this site, and that happens?
Well, to be fair, I think he did smoke off the back store. We can see the diffuser's actually cold in the site.
Fire.
And he's got C4. What's he going to be able to do? I think they may be gone for a bit of a rush plant or something like that, and it's just not worked out at all. Herds caught inside the closet. Manages to get rid of the barbed wire. Pre-fires on through. He's 1 bullet at best away from being sent into the cameras here. And W7M are looking a little bit lost inside of this round. We've already seen half of it as well. So, just what have they got to show for it? What have they got to show for half a round? We got Panico peeking through main door. Nobody really pressuring inside of Library. He's just getting himself up there now. Felipox finds a kill over onto Kai's. Panico manages to shut down Lukid, but it's almost a consolation prize at this point.
Okay, I was going to say, Herds is finally in. No, not really. Not for very long. It's only Panico who's remaining at this point. This is exceptionally messy. He knows that there are all angles from all around onto him. W7M barely even got to see the site. I just really, really hope that going into round 4, up to round 6, they're going to change something. They need to change something.
It's a stubbornness at the moment. That's really what it feels like. It's like, no, this is what we've practiced. This is what works. You know, this is what we need to try and do. And how many times can you attempt that before you realize,
Oh,
you know
he's locked
what?
in Hibana.
There we go. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was all leading up to that bar site, Gio. We've just thrown 3 sites away, or 2 sites away, should I say.
That's what it was.
And now
they
it's
thought
like,
they were going to bar.
Right, we can start to play. I mean, it's just not that important. It's just not that deep. It
I
really isn't that deep.
I will say that was really smart from MIBR to not go to bar until their 3rd site.
Yeah, especially when they see the Capital first pick, they're like, all right, yeah, bar 3rd site, no problem.
They didn't see Capital get... Well, I mean, obviously they did after they actually got into the round, but yeah, they didn't need to go to bar for their 2nd round. They pushed it back into round number 3. So many teams have become accustomed to bar being that primary site that, yeah, you can bait out really specific niche operator lineups from your opponent just by picking different sites. And especially if you're feeling exceptionally comfortable on this map, as MIBR do, this was, after all, essentially their map pick. That was a very, very good play from them. So now W7M, they've got to try and pick up those pieces. 3 rounds down already.
And MIBR are giving us the full flex on Chalet as well. They suffered a plant in the previous time that they defended into kitchen. So instead of going into kitchen, they've decided to go up to the top floor. And they're obviously going to try and hold that a little bit firmer. Still an opportunity to get a plant down, and with W7M now having a hard breach, it almost becomes a little bit of a fairer fight. I'm expecting to see that used on either the Solarium side or maybe a bit more of an old-fashioned take in through Library. GDN is currently droning out Library. There's going to be a couple of mute jammers that are going to be causing a few problems, and it isn't going to be exactly easy to get into Library as it stands anyway. Nade going to come through for Reduct. Brilliantly timed. Kais has landed that to perfection. He's paid for it with his life, mind. It was a 1-for-1 trade. It was a great little bit of teamwork there to burn the ADS and remove the player from Fireplace.
Well, we didn't get to see GDM place the Hibana pellets, but we did get to see him pull them out. So we know that they're in the world. Guys, this is pretty exciting stuff. Now, this is also interesting, just the way that they're droning in from where we're seeing some of these positionings from W7M, because in recent times, and I'm thinking more towards the end of stage 2, it became way more popular to go for a Solarium push when you were trying to get into this site and kind of ignore this other side of the map. And it seems that W7M are really toying with the idea, coming in from the Library side once again. Now, this is the window that we saw Lukid get his juice from before, whiffs the shot, gets a ton of damage. Probably not what he was looking for.
Still happy to challenge onto it with the pistol potentially, but Raps has been able to shut Herds down, and a second over onto GDN. Managing to defend into Piano, all he's really got to show for it is a deployable shield and the Toxic Babe canisters, and honestly, it is all he needs. There is no capability now to remove that shield from W7M, and it's going to be very difficult indeed. Bit of information gathering going on here. Panico on his Twitch drone, trying to find if there's anything that he needs to be looking to get rid of, Valkyrie camera or anything stray like that. Instead, he's just going to have to try and brute force his way on in. Getting pre-fired now as well. He looking to challenge into Piano. Felipox makes the C4 land, and it was a desperate attempt from Guy to try and make something happen. Oh, you don't know your luck, Felipox. Right place at the right time. Mid-reload, sees the man hopping in through the window and just thinks, I'll take that as well. Thank you very much.
It just seemed like such an incoherent push from W7M. Everyone was on a different page at a different time. It didn't look like everybody was setting themselves up. Yeah, sure, there was a decent amount of droning, and I'm sure that information was being passed on, you know, between everybody, but don't do it. Oh, okay, that could be worse. Okay, yeah, so he gets the smoke. He gets the smoke that he would have had from bringing Capitão. He's still going to be playing on the hard breach. All right, I can live with that one. Yeah, so everyone was droning for each other, but that was kind of about it because everyone was doing things at different times. It seemed like everybody was very separate. I'm a really big fan and look for these two-pronged attacks on many different sites, many different maps, but that didn't feel like a two-pronged attack. It felt like everybody was taking a different entrance and just kind of, yeah, try and push yourself in. You know what I mean? Yeah,
nothing really was achieved, and again, I think it comes, you know, teams that are less coordinated come under that little bit more pressure. And, you know, we're not really ragging on W7M here, but they are just making some fairly strange decisions as a whole. You know, we've seen these guys play well in the past, but there's just a couple of things that they've done that have really sort of raised a few questions. And I think some of the stubbornness in operators really hasn't helped, and some of those pushes have just looked a little bit solo. It's like everyone's trying to make that hero play. We know that everyone's very capable on the side. It's a good choice from GDN to hit the Thermite inside of this round at least, because he knows, or is at least expecting, that they're going to be going downstairs. Thermite's great for getting that garage open, and that's going to happen inside of the first 30 seconds, so already a night and day difference here. W7M's approach looking like it may have a little bit more something to it this time.
Yeah, something that they just simply couldn't achieve the last time that they came here was getting this snow door open. And it was nicely coordinated with Kai's using his nade to clear out any denial that could have been behind the door. So I assume there was an electro claw. I actually didn't see if the wall was electrified before. But if there were, or if there were mute jammers, then those were taken out pretty easily. Not going to be holding on to the angle, however. Instead, he looks like he's going to be going for a rotate elsewhere. Panico instead will be looking, and his herds to collect the first kill. That's onto Lukid, who, as we've discussed, has been a pretty valuable member of the team so far, having experienced just his second death with that one.
Yeah, 6-2. He's really popping off so far, and Lukid's that player that you can just leave out there stranded on the roam, and he's more than happy holding his own. And it's something that he's consistently been able to do inside of this game. Obviously, he's going to be sent to the cameras this time. There's a little bit for him to be flicking through. He's got a bulletproof to see if he can glean any information off. But I don't think the MIBR are going to be too concerned here. Whilst that roaming presence has been lost, it's still taking W7M a good amount of time to actually approach and get themselves into a position. Herds has just received intel that somebody could be making a rotation. He is going to miss his chance. Gets one bullet into Reduct, but it is not going to be enough, and Reduct likely will get himself back down for free. Felipox looks like he could be thinking about a bit of a challenge here. Reduct actually will be taken on out as he makes that rotation back down into sight. W7M doing a really good job of coordinating the pressure here that they're actually able to apply. And MIBR will start to be feeling this pinch a little bit more now. Felipox conscious of those blue stairs, doesn't want to get caught out in the floor, actually thinking about getting that plant down, and it looks as though it's going to stick. Felipox gets shut down by Herds in what was a fantastic shot.
No.
Kai's coming in with some great cover as that plant was going down, and Raps is now left in the clutch. He picks up the first onto Herds, but he's got so many different angles to challenge onto, and W7M had his number. They shut him down, and they finally pick up an attacking round here.
That was a much better round from W7M. Not only being able to, the difference having a hard breacher makes is crazy, but also just they were able to punish a lot of the peaks that MIBR were making in that round really well. So, you know, Lukid, we saw it happen to Reduct. It meant that they couldn't defend the blue stairs particularly well. It meant that when Falz was trying to throw his C4 out through the soft gap in the wall, he was taken down before that could do anything. It makes me wonder if MIBR will be a little bit more cautious of that going into this next round and maybe not so overzealous to be making peaks. Not that they were doing wild, crazy peaks, but just if now you have an idea that, oh, our opponent can punish that, that is something that maybe you want to take into account, because up until this point, W7M have really given MIBR no reason to be worried.
Yeah, they've not looked like a threat at all, and then in that last round they just turn it on out of nowhere, and it's like, well, these guys are dangerous. Like, they've got crossfires, they've got, you know, they're forcing players from A to B and they're picking them up as they move through. These guys look like they really know what they're doing, and I guess that's just some of the inconsistency that we see with W7M sometimes, is that they can go from having a round like that into, you know, having the rounds that they did in rounds 1 to 5, or 1 to 4, should I say. Not very successful at all, but a little bit of coordination was all it took. Maybe Thermite is the secret sauce here that they were really looking for. It's just giving them a little bit more of a focus as a team. And because you've got to actually get into position to be able to place that exothermic charge, you really need to take the control. It's not as if you can just risk the Hibana pellets from afar. I think that could be a little bit of an added benefit, especially when they're trying to approach this site.
Well, let's see if they can recreate the results of that last round here. Look, a 4-2 split is at least better than a 5-1, but when you're on the attacking half, if you're the guy getting just 1 or 2 rounds, not a good place to be, on Chalet particularly, so it's not ideal either way, but, you know, it could be worse, I think, is probably the best way to look at it if you're W7M looking to take this round here. Now, they had a bit of a messy approach onto attacking any of these upstairs sites, really, throughout the course of this. Once again, they have that hard breach available. GDN's going to get going with the exothermic charge on the office wall. I'm assuming that his second one is going to be expended down on the dining wall as well. That's usually what you go for. You need to take that office control so you can set up your vertical positions before you go for the lateral.
Still taking the time in doing so, but the control is slowly but surely falling into W7M's hands. Doesn't seem as though MIBR are looking to get too aggressive onto it this time. We're not seeing anyone really challenge too heavily onto windows, etc. upstairs. Still got Falz playing below. He has the C4 in hand, and he's going to be looking to be a last line of defense on the site. GDN actually opens up with a kill onto Felipox. Felipox just getting caught out there. Still with a significant presence upstairs. I don't think that MIBR are going to be too concerned here. Lukid, his favourite window in the bathroom, but this time taking the engagement much more seriously. And instead will drop on through, taking around half damage as he does so. Maybe goes for a drop all the way into the basement and a safe rotation back on up. All of this, though, is giving more opportunity available toward W7M. They're now going to be able to get themselves in and start applying a bit more of that pressure. Falz, the player that we mentioned on site, is actually being removed. So now MIBR have to make that rotation back, and they have to start hitting some shots here and getting some of these kills back. So far, that's the first one that we could even call a rough trade, and even that is immediately shut down by Kais. Reduct is putting a lot of faith here inside of this C4, and with the diffuser in GDN's hands, it is not going to do anything. The plant will be successful, and it's all now down to Reduct. He gets taken out on the rotation. W7M, where have you been for the last couple of rounds? Finally starting to chain a few together.
Yeah, MIBR really looked to fall apart in that round somewhat, but they still do very much have this round count advantage, which could carry them forward if they have a pretty good attack. Naturally, this is the side that many people would consider the favorable side on Chalet. We shall see. So I'm just curious at first to see if there could be any 6 before I get too deep into this. All right, so Valkyrie over from the Aruni. Don't dislike that. Reduct going to be playing on Zephyr instead of Nomad, so the lack of this flank control is going to be an interesting one, as the air jabs are particularly popular utility to use. Now, there are a few deployable shields that are going to be brought with W7M here for this defense. So having those lifelines available to you could be exceptionally useful. You got 6 nades as well. They have more than enough for what they want to get rid of. They're just going to have to watch out for things like these frost traps too. So having those lifelines, I think, will really help in terms of getting rid of the utility that's going to be impeding them in their push. But the question is the lack of flank control going to punish them? I'm not so sure it will, but it could.
I think it's a confidence play, isn't it, from MIBR? It's, you know, we'll try without the Nomad at first. We'll bring the Zephyr and try and bring that little bit more utility, but we know we've got the option to go into the Nomad. We've just got to be careful of the flanks and make sure that those drones are set up in position to be effective, which you can already see that Valz is performing a little bit of early round drone work here, just allowing Lukid a little bit of an easier time getting himself in. If this drone does get left in a reasonable position, then be used later on. They've still got all the drones alive as well, so the flanks, whilst they're going to be a concern, it's really sort of saying to W7M, look, you know, have you guys got the confidence to be going for this extended roam and a bit of a lurk and a bit of a flank, because you guys are the ones that are pretty down and out at the minute.
Well, we'll see how that ends up going. Bit early.
Bit weird.
Yeah. Kind of strange, but you know, whatever. I guess they had some information, didn't end up being the right information? Question mark? How goes the first set of X-Kyros? This could be an interesting angle to actually open up on. The nade to go in first to try and clear out some of that utility. There's still Banshee standing by the library stairs that they're going to have to get rid of, though the changes to that should make it a little bit easier to do so than it used to be in the past.
Shouldn't pose too much of a problem here. Still, a lot of this vertical control is going to be in the hands of MIBR. They've still got the library to try and take into. Wraps. There's going to be a shield at the top of library stairs. Felipox below could be trying to make an approach from underneath as well, but the kills start to come in and they start to go in favor of W7M. A great nade bounced around by Felipox will eventually shut Kai's down, but he's done a lot of damage up until this point. He's removed both Lukid and Falls. Redux now in a position to maybe make something happen as he's looking to enter in through the small closet. He's still upstairs. 9mm in hand, yet to see a Frost kill inside of this round, but there is always time for that. Instead, he downs Redux, picks one up onto Felipox. Somebody please deal with the Frost inside of library. It's the oldest trick in the book, and Gia's gotten away with all sorts there. There is time enough for Redux to be revived, and time enough for this to go back to an equal 2 versus 2, but the diffuser is still cold on the ground. MIBR have to split up here, and they have to move fairly quickly. W7M dug deep, not looking to give themselves away. Panico finds one, GDN the second. Great teamwork there from W7M to tie up their first round on defense.
It really seemed to me like the majority of MIBR's approach there was based around opening up these lateral angles and trying to punish from there. So they opened the one up in dining, they opened the one up into backstore. They wanted to apply that pressure and move in from that, you know, kind of direction. But it's very bizarre to me that they decided to, for the most part, leave library untouched. So Guy was just up there kind of just chilling. They eventually got him, but not after he had already, or sorry, not before he had already got decent kills himself. The shield at the top of the library stairs was still standing. There was still utility in the form of Banshees. The classic way of attacking onto this site is to do that top floor clear. And I'm not saying that MIBR have got to stay with the traditional way of attacking onto a site. We would never see any kind of development or evolution in this game if everybody stayed doing the same thing all the time. But it did mean that there were really important parts of the map that were left in control of the defenders that MIBR were just too late to deal with by that point. And, you know, you're left in this 2 versus 2. Having to push into the site blind, you don't have the diffuser. What are you going to do? I just think that they should have had a bit more attention paid onto what was happening upstairs, at least clear it out, and then go for that strategy that you were so keenly looking to execute on.
I think MIBR really getting caught short there, and maybe demonstrated by Redux switching over onto the Zephyr now. From the Zephyr onto the Nomad. Certainly not paid enough respect, I think, onto W7M, and it was nice to see Kaiser's newer player to the roster really shine inside of that round, shining in the game as a whole now as well. 8-5 currently. I think W7M are going to be given quite a bit of confidence now, and it really could come down to those 2 attacking rounds that W7M were able to gain. You know, that might be a big deciding factor here in how this game goes. MIBR are going to have to get their act together. A lot of kills went down as kills that weren't immediately traded in the previous round. That's something that can't afford to let be a pattern or a theme. So I think it makes a lot of sense that we're seeing a slightly slower approach here from MIBR. GDN going to be the first to fall. Panico as well. Both players, DBNO, the ability still for them to be revived, but it is highly unlikely at this point. Kais, look at the patience. Look at the trigger discipline that he is displaying. The only problem is he's allowing his teammates to be taken advantage of upstairs, as GDN is going to be downed, and it's largely going to be due to Raps. Guys, you've got to try and push in. He's fully preoccupied here. You know that he's going to be in there. And he's looking directly up
he's
above.
running away.
He's actually made his way outside of Garage and run outside. So we could see the silhouette, but he wasn't actually inside. Now Kaiser's got no idea. The trail is fully cold now as to Raps' location.
Well, you can hear the air jabs going off, so at least there's that. That's one of the things that we mentioned. Lukid finally gets punished, but a couple of kills in return for MIBR. Make that another, which leaves just Guy on his own. So all of a sudden, this looks like it's going in a different direction. Now, Guy... yeah. Guy... It's
a spot for Guy to be in. I think Kaiser will probably look back at that round and just kick himself as well. Like, it's knowing when to dial that aggression on and off, and I think that was one of the times he could have got away with just pushing that.
I totally agree, because sure, if you let the attacker get away, then you have the option to, I suppose, you have the position where they don't necessarily know you were there, and so you could flank them later on, but you do have to have a certain level of proactivity in what it is that you are doing. If you know that you essentially have this free opportunity onto someone, trigger discipline is excellent, but the whole point of discipline is that you do eventually act on it. Now, again, we did just have another couple 6 picks, so Kaiser's gone onto the Mozzie, and we've got Falls here going onto Ace instead of Hibana. So that's an interesting change, just because Hibana, if she's not banned, so many people will choose to play her. Ace could give them a decent opening in onto the snowmobile door. So I'm wondering if they've kind of read into the fact that they're going to be going into this site, and they know that having those Selmas placed on the door there is going to be really useful to them. But obviously, it's less good if you're looking to be opening up hatches, which is where Hibana really excels. And they only have that one hard breacher, so once he's used his Selmas in one place, that's kind of it.
It's kind of shocking how much basement we're actually seeing.
I know.
Typically, we don't get to see a great deal, and so far this game, it's been as popular as any of the other sites, which is just wild in the context of Chalet. Both of these teams feeling the want and the need to go there. And it's not working out too badly. MIBR have obviously got a lot of work to do inside of this round if they're going to start to full clear. Not that they're being forced into that full clear. There is a roaming presence, but it's not significant from W7M. It's more of a lurk, but it's still enough to draw a fair bit of time here. MIBR recognizing just how close this game could get. W7M aren't just rolling over and letting things happen to them. Guy gets away with it there.
Oh.
He's going to make that call out, and Kai's is going to try and get himself out of dodge as well.
Oh, such a ring around the rosy one.
GDN still finds one onto Raps, though, a C4 that will land. I think maybe the benefit there of Guy just running and hightailing it out is MIBR still don't know exactly how many people are upstairs. If they assume that it's just one, they could very easily get caught out.
I mean, they'll have the Geminis available to them if they want to be going and hunting for information. They still got drones out and about, so they can take the time. I mean, this is that mid-round droning time anyway, so they can take that time to go and do that. Now they're going to start making their rotate downstairs, which I think is a good idea. You have to remember, of course, the site is down in the basement. You can't spend your whole life upstairs. But they are slightly outnumbered. It's not, you know, the end of the world. But the fact that we've still got players like Kai's, like Herds, who are playing on these roamers, they're still out and about. That's where I worry, because usually you would want to have those down by now.
Especially with how deep MIBR have actually got themselves into Trench. They're very well attacking into that side of the map. GDN, you've got to push in. Fowls is actually in sight here. He's even debating getting the plant down. He will come off it momentarily. Kai's looking to try and fire on through. MIBR have just said, you know what? We are going directly for the site. And now W7M are in a retake. One found, but one traded equally back directly. 2 more kills fly in here for MIBR. Guy, can he be the difference maker? 1 versus 2. Fowls eventually will start to get this plant down. He hasn't got a lot going for him. He's got 3 goo mines, but realistically, what are they going to do? Nobody ever anticipates the prone player. Fowls knows this, gets the plant, immediately drops to prone, pre-fires on through. Information, a sound call, or something there, really giving him the edge in that final engagement.
So there was definitely some trepidation from W7M to be peeking around those corners once MIBR were in the site. And I think it's at that point that you almost have to, I don't want to say let go of your pride, but you have to let go of your fear. You are not the one in control of holding the site anymore once they've infiltrated it. And that's one of the problems I think that W7M had there. But I have to call out that trade that Reduct got from the doorway into Wine onto, oh man, I don't remember whoever it was who was standing in the elbow door. Oh my goodness, it was so perfectly timed, and I think really exemplifies why W7M had that trepidation in the first place. They had every right to be nervous about it, but the fact is they'd let those channels be open for MIBR. They'd let them slip past them. And I said that I was concerned because the roamers were still alive, and even though they'd been recalled back down to the site at that point, that's a lot of people. Those are operators who you would want off the board at that point. It should have been on them to prevent MIBR from getting into the position where they could just walk into the site like that in the first place.
It would have been really nice for the roamers to actually get themselves down West Main and come in behind MIBR, and then MIBR are getting pinched on every conceivable angle. Whereas it stood, MIBR were like, great, we've come in through West Main and through Trench and that direction, and we don't now need to worry about that because we know that everyone else has come in through the other side. So it wasn't entirely as good as it could have been for W7M. Obviously, it's a split-second call. It's a difficult decision to make to know if you've got the time to make a full rotation or not, but it was something that worked out for MIBR. They do now sit on a match point, poised and ready to take the full 3 points here out of this one. We've still got potentially a couple of rounds to go as U7M are going to be defending down inside the bar, and they were successful here last time that they defended here.
I want to point out as well, we're seeing a Flores be brought, which I'm quite happy to see because there was utility that was left up from MIBR when they tried to attack onto this site last time. The Flores drones should be able to get some of that off the board. Also, I suppose they could use it to breach if they wanted to. I don't suspect that's going to be what they use it for in this case, but you never know. Either way, it's the extra information too that you can gain from simply having an extra 4 drones. There's so much flexibility with that Flores, and you can see they've already used two of them as already.
Shields proved quite the menace as well in the previous round. I think of Kai's and the success that he was able to have playing in and around the deployable shield. Took Fleepox quite a while to get the nade in the right place to be able to deal with him, and Flores just gives you a little bit more flexibility to do that. Now, Fleepox has only got 1 left. In fact, that'll be the last one being used now as we see the icon lit up on his avatar, as that is it for the Flores drone. So if anything does remain, it's going to have to be dealt with the old-fashioned way with a nade or a Gon 6. Still a fairly timid start here from W7M, as there's a lot of information gathering still going on.
You got less than a minute remaining as well. I don't have a problem with being thorough, but you've got to be doing a timely fashion. Finally seeing a Pogmat kill! Let's go!
That's exactly what we came to Chalet for.
You have to do it! It is a rite of passage, and Guy has achieved that. There's the Toxic Babe canister downstairs too. MIBR, they're being a lot more careful than they were the last time they're attacking here, but I don't think their time management has been as good as it should be. Finally, they've got control of library. This is something that they failed to do sufficiently last time. You can get the kill jumping down through the hatch, but GDN is still there.
Plant going down now with 6 seconds left. Fouls cannot afford to come off it, and he will be taken on out. Kai's from above. The retake was retaken. And Kaiser's gone, you know what? I know that you're in the site. I'm going to make that rotation up into library, and I'm going to use the exact hatch that you just got a lot of success through as well. W7M still not out of this yet. 2 rounds away from leveling things up, taking it to an overtime, and guaranteeing some points out of this.
This is the thing as well, is MIBR, you could tell they were trying to adapt. You could tell that they were putting in the work to ensure that they were being more thorough upstairs, which is what they totally failed to do back in round number 7. But they still didn't account for everyone. The fact that Kai's was able to get that kill from behind and MIBR hadn't stopped him from being there. And they used a lot of time. I feel like what we saw from MIBR in that round was them having some doubts and overthinking how they should go about that round.
Yeah, quite possibly. And then things, you know, little things like the Frostmat kill coming in. Obviously, Leapox was already down but not out when he landed in the Frostmat. He got downed in the animation of jumping through, but it's still something that you've got to check for. And if he hadn't have got downed, he would have still died to the Frostmat. It's that double redundancy that W7M, you know, happy to run with, and it's the success that they see out on the road. I'm not sure. I don't think we got to actually see where any of the Flores drones were used. But it wasn't a deciding factor. You know, we saw MIBR, they got a little bit closer into the site, but they still weren't able to get the plant down or do anything about it. So, again, little adaptation there that didn't really work out too well. Maybe it's not too much to worry about. It's the only site that W7M have been successful on defending so far. But the doubts have got to start to creep in now for MIBR, and, well, the confidence must be at an all-time high for W7M.
Totally agree. Now, I'm really intrigued to see how it is that they're going to approach attacking into Master, since this is their first time doing it. But one of the problems W7M had attacking onto this site was just they were just everywhere. They were all these little individual pieces moving in Brownian motion around each other, but not actually forming any kind of holistic entity. MIBR need to be that. They need to have some actual cohesive plan. I'm also intrigued as well. I want to see if they're going to make an entrance in through Solar, if they're going to come in through the other side of the map. It looks like they have a couple of players up present towards Solar. They're droning in here. They can see the electrified wall as well as the open soft wall too. They know that the Prisma is there. So they've got a really solid idea of what is going on this side of the map.
MIBR maybe recognising the importance of this one and the fact that they want to try and lock it in, as again they're moving fairly slowly here. We've seen half the round already. Redux still going to be holding on to the bottom of Trophy. Kai's a player that really has stepped up and made himself known inside of this game. Shuts down Felipox, who has been quiet since getting onto the attack. Still, Solar Repel is being occupied. Herds takes down Redux and a second on to Lukid. Raps and Falls follow back in, but they're still at a man disadvantage. There's a minute left to play, and Panico C4 will hit this time. Fowls, he's all alone. Again, we see Fowls in the clutch. He really hasn't had the greatest game so far. A lot of the frags he's got have been impactless. Kai sweeps in and picks up that final kill. Gio, this one really could go to OT.
Honestly, when the half changed, and I was like, right, MIBR, they get to be on attack now. I was thinking they're pretty much just going to run away with this. But they have seriously struggled on their attack. It was their defense where so much of their prowess came in, and W7M seemed to have picked up a lot of problems. It honestly makes you wonder, had W7M not made that trip up with the Capital stuff in the first 3 rounds, would this game be over?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
That's a worrying feeling.
Well, it is if you're an MIBR fan.
Yeah, that was implied.
No, but it is worrying given, what MIBR to be capable of. It's like, oh, well, like, W7M, like, they've really started to show up here. Something that I think is really nice that's happening here is that Kai's is having a pop-off. He's 12-7, and he was someone that in the pre-game video that we ran where they interview all the players, we got the subtitles at the bottom, Bodega was saying that he wanted to make the game as difficult as possible for Kai's because he knows that Kai's is an aggressive player, and the MIBR were going to try and, bring some of that aggression and stuff. So for Kai's to just stand up and be like, current second top frag in the entire lobby, it's a really nice little touch. And again, potential here for W7M to take this into an overtime, which I'll be honest, I don't think that many people were expecting moving into this game. But as the game has developed and progressed, we've seen that there have been some significant cracks in the attacks for MIBR.
Oh, we'll see how it continues. One thing I also just want to point out as well, notice that the Lukid hasn't been playing with the G36C. He's been choosing the ARX instead, which I feel isn't very common for Yana players. Because Redux going on it, sure, people have their preferences between the AK-74M and the ARX. You oftentimes see a balance, I feel, when you're looking at no-map players. But if you're thinking about Yana, you almost always see the G36C.
It's one of the, maybe he's getting ready for post-nerf Yana. When the G36 just gets yoinked. Maybe that's what he's planning on.
Anticipating it?
Yeah, he's just playing for the future.
Okay, that makes sense. I get it. Well, either way, see how that continues to go. Didn't do much for them in that last round. But so far, everybody's still standing. There is that. Herds holding on to Master, knowing full well that MIBR are going to be, well, looking to get control of that area as they're attacking here onto Kitchen. Bringing Herds down is pretty useful, but a nice C4 from Panico is going to punish Felipox and continue to make it difficult for MIBR to take this control. I mean, Kai's and Guy both moving in. That's a big resource allocation to have your players go into that space. Guy to be brought down basically puts all of the responsibility on Kai's shoulders now.
For all that there's an advantage here for MIBR, they've still lost a big piece of the puzzle, and they have lost the sledge. Now, obviously, they've still got Raps who's going to be able to make a lot of those vertical holes, but with the amount of time that remains, you would ideally like 2 people to be able to be doing that. Going to be a hatch drop more than likely to try and get this plant down, or at least a drop and a push. Somebody still on the big window. Repel. Panico starting to see a little bit of pressure now as well as he further rotates. Actually getting himself down into the basement. Now, he doesn't have a C4. I imagine the hatch will be open, but he won't be able to affect onto it all too much. Kai's is still going to be upstairs, but does get shut down by Raps. A great flick from him there. And this could be the final nails going into the coffin for W7M. MIBR have really stepped up the game inside of this round, only losing 1 player and so far performing quite a decent top floor clear. It's cost them quite a bit of time as they do now only have 30 seconds left to fully execute on, but they are gonna start. Raps shuts down Panico. GDN, the last remaining hope, pre-fires on through, but it is very wishful. Lukid shuts him down, a player that has had a great game throughout. finally locks things up here for MIBR. A closer game than I'm sure they would like, but it is a win nonetheless, and another 3 points.
Yeah, that was definitely something that I think they're going to go back and look on, especially that latter half. But MIBR finally crossed the finish line. Oh, Rap's having a pretty decent game there. Okay, hello, I see you. Kai's as well. You know, as you said, Bodega said that he wanted to shut down Kai's. He wanted to punish Kai's. There were a number of rounds where I think MIBR decidedly failed in that endeavor, to be perfectly honest with you. But what's really nice is that we got to see him show up, and we get to see this relatively new player in the BR6 show what he is made of. And he certainly helped put a really hard game up for MIBR.
He did. He didn't make it easy for them at all. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. I know that we ragged on W7M fairly hard, especially at the start of that game when we saw a lot of the Capital play. And, you know, I honestly just... please don't do it next time, because that was a game that you guys really could have won. It really did come down to only a couple of small things.
A learning opportunity.
A learning opportunity. MIBR not as good as I think we thought they were going to be coming into that one either. I know that someone who did kind of predict that one very well was Trunks. Trunks said that it was going to be a close one. So let's bring him back in. Hope he's not too insufferable about being right, but there we go.
Guess I'm just the best analyst out here. I even, you know what? This is gonna sound so toxic. I even went back in the VOD and clipped you saying, "Oh, it's gonna be a one-sided game. It's not gonna be a close one." I had to.
Wow. Do you want to cast the next one, Chunks?
How often do I get these predictions right? I am usually dead wrong. I had to make the most of it. But look, we gotta say, W7M, they put up an amazing fight right there, especially only considering how things started out. It started out really rocky for them. They were kind of all over the place.
Yeah, you know, and remove that start and give, you know, an average of the way that they played in the later half of that game, even the last two attacking rounds, average that performance out, throw that onto the first 3 rounds, we would have seen an entirely different game there from them. And it really did just come down to one or two things. I think MIBR maybe got a little bit lucky today that W7M weren't switched on from the word go.
Yeah, all right, look, let's have a quick talk over to Bodega from MIBR, the coach, obviously, who we saw him filling in last stage, now on the sidelines. Never mind, we are having some technical issues. We'll have him back in just a moment. Gio, you got to say, MIBR, it felt like at times things started to slip, but they came out on top in the end after a really good first half.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were some moments where maybe they underestimated W7M, and some of their attacks look a little bit messy, but I mean, I guess we can ask Bodega about it, because they pulled it back in the end.
Yeah, absolutely they did. Bodega, you here? We got it all fixed? Bodega, how did that one feel to you, man? It got a bit close towards the end.
Yeah, as Gio said, I think we kind of were trying to focus on what they are doing and not what we were doing. And I think that's basically what kind of confused us, because W7M is a team that doesn't have a play style made yet, so it kind of confused us. And on the last round, we tried to do what we do best. We got our open kill with Philippox, and everything was good for us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys started out... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so we could close it out the game before the...
Opa, tudo bom?
Yeah, before that, forgot the word in English.
It's all right. Look, you guys started out really strong, but it seemed at first like W7M were a little bit all over the place, and that really worked to your strength as you were able to just hit them off one by one. But as it got later in the game, did you feel like W7M were playing a bit more team focus, catching you in crossfires, that kind of thing?
Yeah, they started kind of messy and kind of lost. And then we tried to make a less aggressive play style than we usually do. And then they started to play. They started to do something, some attacks that were good. And then we had to do some aggression to counter that. And it cost us a few of the defensive rounds, a few of the attack rounds. So in the end, we could close it out.
Bodega, something that I wanted to ask you was, how does it feel to have Philippox back at full force now? not only is he, you know, able to play back on a mouse and keyboard, but he's really performing very well inside of stage 3, and he's currently the highest rated player on your team. So that must be a good feeling. Has it been a big morale boost to get him back?
Yeah, now we are in full shape. We have the 5-man roster, thank God. We are working very hard to play on the Elite 6. We are now at 4 points from Black Dragons. I think we're gonna pass to the Elite 6, and then we're gonna show our true MIBR on the Elite 6. We're playing some games that are so passive. I hate BR6 because of that. So I want to show everything at the Elite 6.
I like it. I like it. Look, I do want to ask one thing, and I think this is actually, you know what? I'll ask you next time around. How about that one? Because that's all the time we've got right now. Bodega, thank you so much for joining us, and an amazing game coming out from you guys.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
Well, that is it. 2 matches down, but still 2 more to go. Do not go anywhere, because the next 2, I think, are probably going to be 2 of the closest games we're going to see in the BR6 this season. So we'll see you soon.